Entry 1. The military brought us here. Me, 2 men, and 1 woman. I was in no condition to resist. Any attempt I made to escape was suppressed by a horse-sized dose of a psychotropic drug they had pumped into me back at the clinic. We were immediately settled into rooms equipped as solitary cells, where the only source of light was a dim red bulb, securely covered by a steel mesh shade. There were no windows in the cell. The gray concrete walls, roughly finished, exuded dampness and depression. The heavy steel door, painted dark green, was despair-inducing. In the left corner, relative to the door, stood a metal bed bolted to the floor. To the right, a rusty toilet faded into the background. There was no sink, table, or any other modest household items in the cell. I was carelessly dragged in here and thrown to the floor. The door slammed shut, and I was left alone. I lay motionless for a long time, listening to my own raspy breathing. I couldn't even imagine why I had been brought here or what they planned to do with me and the others. I shuddered, experiencing an indescribable primal fear. Any attempt to think logically crumbled under the influence of the strong drug. Every moment of clarity was accompanied by a sharp headache. It seemed like I spent an eternity in that state before I came to my senses a bit. I felt like a wild animal locked in a cage. My hospital clothes were stained with dried blood. My skin was shiny with bruises and abrasions. I tried to stand several times, but my body wouldn't obey. Again and again, I fell to the cold, musty-smelling floor. My mouth produced muffled groans, and tears of despair rolled from my eyes. Finally, I found the last bit of strength to stand up and crawl to the bed. Collapsing onto it and feeling the damp but still soft mattress beneath me, I instantly passed out. I had endless nightmares and must have screamed in my sleep. When I finally woke up, all my clothes were soaked with sweat. I had long lost track of time in these walls. My internal clock stopped the moment the door slammed shut behind me. Under the mattress, I found a small old notebook and a piece of a pencil, which helped me make this entry. I decided to write down everything that happens to me, hoping it will somehow help me understand what this place is and why I am here. Entry 2. Once, I was a patient in a closed psychiatric clinic for the hopelessly ill. The clinic was located in the suburbs, hidden from prying eyes by a small, shady fir grove. Here, I was persistently treated for obsessive hallucinations that had tormented me since childhood. They brought all the psychos here, whom society suddenly considered dangerous for various reasons. I was one of those dangerous ones. They placed me here after, in a severe hallucinatory delirium, I brutally killed my mother and then dismembered her body. That's what the police claimed when they arrived at the scene of the gruesome murder and found me there. I still don't remember anything from that terrible evening. Later, a forensic psychiatric examination declared me insane and sent me to this clinic. Here, they pumped me full of all sorts of drugs, and at night, they tied me tightly to the bed. I never tried to resist this, fully aware that I was seriously ill. More than anything in the world, I feared that I might lose control again and do something horrible. The medications were clearly doing me good. The hallucinations almost stopped. My mind slowly regained consciousness. They started allowing me rare walks around the territory, during which I sometimes even managed to exchange a few words with someone from the medical staff. I had been in the clinic for about a year. One night, 2 burly orderlies entered my room. They woke me up and ordered me to follow them to the chief doctor's office. Upon entering the corridor, one of them pulled out a triangular key and opened a door leading to a stairwell. We went upstairs, where there were several more doors, and entered one of them. It was the office. But the chief doctor was not there. Instead, 4 armed men in military uniform greeted me. Their faces were hidden by balaclavas. The orderlies forcefully sat me down on a chair and, without saying a word, left. I was bewildered by what was happening and simply couldn't put 2 words together. One of the military men approached me and started shining something red in my face. The other 2 immediately grabbed my arms. I jerked in a futile attempt to break free. Their trained, steely grip held me like a vice. The fourth military man approached me from behind and swiftly plunged a syringe into my neck. The needle hit the carotid artery precisely. At that moment, the world around me spun, and I lost consciousness. Delusional, obsessive dreams enveloped my tormented brain. I came to in the back of a truck filled with phosphorescent reddish fog. Next to me lay 3 more bodies, 2 men and a woman. They wore the same hospital clothes as me. All of them were unconscious. Apparently, they had also been injected. The truck was shaking and swaying. I could hear the dynamic hum of the engine. We were being taken somewhere. I looked around for a long time, trying to understand something. Then my mind clouded again, and the following events are remembered as if in a dream. The truck doors swung open. A sharp red spotlight shone right in my eyes. The military men dragged us out. They twisted my arms and led me for a long time down long corridors. Then came the open door of a cell and a painful fall to the floor. Throughout all this, the military men did not utter a single word. I didn't hear any commands or orders. They acted precisely according to one well-coordinated practice scheme. A chilling terror grips me. This place seems unreal. It resembles the nightmarish delusion of a maniac driven mad by murder and blood. Entry 3. It seemed to me that the light of the red lamp above the door had intensified. Now, when I get up from the bed, my body casts an ominous shadow. I wonder how long I've been here. A day or two? I'm incredibly thirsty. Sometimes I hear a strange mechanical hum, as if a giant engine is running. The hum comes from somewhere below. When it appears, the floor begins to vibrate slightly. After a while, everything quiets down, then repeats again. The thought crossed my mind that maybe I'm dead and now in some kind of purgatory, but rare flashes of clarity dispelled this delusion from me. I need to calm down and get some sleep. Entry 4. I just experienced one of the most indescribably horrific hallucinations of my life. I was awakened by an incomprehensible noise. It came from the door. Someone was desperately scratching from the outside. Thousands of tiny paws were pounding. I listened. The rustling did not stop. On the contrary, something was not just scratching but almost drumming on the dilapidated door with thin claws. A chill ran down my spine. In horror, I huddled in the corner of the bed and, without taking my eyes off the door, continued to listen, trying to understand at least the nature of these inhuman sounds. Meanwhile, the light of the red lamp became brighter. It quickly filled the space, and it became so bright that it was impossible to keep my eyes open. Squeezing my eyes shut, I trembled with fear. The blows on the door became stronger and more insistent. It seemed that it was being battered down. Even the deaf concrete walls shook in time with it. The mechanical hum, which I mentioned earlier, also intensified. Now it was as loud as ever and resembled the roar of some alien monster. All this blinding red cacophony, like a rabid beast, sank its fangs into the gray mass of my tormented brain. Sound and light intertwined in an ugly union, giving birth to something that absolutely goes beyond the familiar representations of life. Something that can only be felt with the elusive sixth sense when the whole body is paralyzed by inexplicable terror, creeping from the depths of the otherworldly universe. My fear turned into despair. Unable to bear it any longer, I forced out a shrill, prolonged scream. At that very second, everything fell silent. Deafening silence swallowed the sounds. The light dimmed and returned to normal. I clasped my head in my hands and, sobbing, froze in place. Everything disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. Before, my eyes still swirled acrid flashes, as if I had been looking at welding for a long time. My ears were ringing from the rush of blood, and my body was shaking with tremors and convulsions. Suddenly, I was overcome by an unbearable feeling of nausea. Leaning to the side, I released a powerful, bitter stream. And at the same moment, A new wave of fear, to which disgust was now added, seized me. I saw how a huge white centipede writhed in the slime of my vomit. Entry 5. I was lying on the floor when they suddenly threw open the door. I didn't hear any creaking of the lock or turning of the key. There were 4 of them again, and their faces were still hidden by balaclavas. I immediately recognized them. It was the same quartet that had taken me from the clinic. Such people are hard to confuse with anyone else. The same height, angular movements, even the stains on their camouflage were in the same places. Like soldiers printed on a printer, they reminded me of the soldiers from old video games. I decided then that this must be my personal escort. As before, they blinded my face with a red glow. Then they approached me, threw me to the floor, and forcefully tore off my hospital pajamas. Seeing a thin scalpel glinting in the military man's hand, I screamed and tried to break free. A scuffle ensued. I twisted as best I could, showering them with all sorts of curses. They, maintaining a grave silence, tried to grab me by the limbs. In agony, I grabbed one of them by the head and forcefully tore off his balaclava. Seeing his face, I was immediately paralyzed with horror. Even a second of what I saw was enough to understand that it was not a human. An absolutely white, slippery head and a faceless face without curves or hair. He also had no ears, nose, or lips. Only small, shiny black eyes stared at me motionlessly. The slit of his mouth opened arbitrarily, revealing small, pointed teeth. For another second, I was stunned. Then, writhing, I grabbed the hand holding the scalpel. Trying to wrest this medical instrument away, I pulled the hand toward me so hard that I tore it off. At that moment, my fear knew no bounds. I was holding a plastic mannequin hand with a scalpel in my fist, and above me dangled the emptied sleeve of an army jacket. This just can't be, I thought in those terrible minutes. This must be just another hallucination. My brain refused to accept the obvious. But then the creature started kicking me, and I felt very real pain. Disgustedly throwing away this prosthetic hand and pushing the non-humans aside, I somehow managed to get to my feet. Seeing the open door, I rushed toward the exit, leaving behind all the unbearable horror. I ran down the long, unlit corridor, emaciated and dehydrated. My legs gave way. I stumbled and fell more than once. Then I got up again and, with my last bit of strength, continued my escape. At the end of the corridor, there was a light, a red, warm glow. I didn't know what awaited me there. Apparently, yielding to ancient instincts, I unconsciously ran toward the source of the light. Approaching, I realized it was just another cell in which, obviously, someone else was also imprisoned. The same kind of cell where they had kept me. The door was open, and its light flooded part of the corridor. I hesitantly stepped inside. In the corner on the bed, I saw a sprawled body. I approached it. It was a man, one of those with whom I had been brought here. The man was dead. On his face, I saw the first signs of decomposition. He had died with his eyes open, in which, frozen, shone an inexpressible horror. In his mouth, I noticed a barely visible movement. Something was moving in his mouth. His lips parted, and a disgustingly slippery centipede emerged. It quickly crawled out, arched around the left side of his face, and disappeared in the temple area. I stepped back in revulsion. Only now did I notice that his entire body was teeming with these creatures. Centipedes crawled over his arms, climbed under his clothes, and, wriggling, emerged into the light. They fell from the bed, continuing their scurrying march on the floor. I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. But no sooner had I taken a step than something possessing considerable strength suddenly pounced on me from behind, and at the same moment, I felt a prick in my neck. My consciousness faded before I even hit the floor. Final entry. This is probably my last entry. They returned me to my cell before I became aware of what was happening. I was again tormented by nightmares until someone's footsteps and a man's voice outside the door woke me up. The man was desperately shouting something about not wanting to be eaten alive, interspersed with incoherent pleas for mercy. They passed by my cell, and then only the echo of their footsteps could be heard. I myself have already resigned myself to the fact that I will not get out of here alive. Now, the only thing that matters to me is that this diary will someday fall into the right hands. And perhaps what is happening here will one day come to an end, and no one else will find themselves locked behind these walls. Now I will try to describe one moment that, as it seems to me, will shed light on everything that is happening here. When they were returning me to the cell, at some point, apparently, they dropped me. From the impact with the floor, I regained consciousness for a split second and managed to see the place they were dragging me through. It was a huge hall filled with reddish phosphorescent fog, in the center of which hovered a sparkling spaceship with all sorts of lights, almost exactly like the ones shown in science fiction films. Around it stood creatures exactly like the one with the mannequin hand that had tried to dissect me. Only these were not in military uniform or any other disguise. They were naked, and their appearance resembled huge centipedes. They were bustling about, engaged in some incomprehensible work, not making a single sound. And at that very moment, some previously inaccessible levels of the subconscious suddenly revealed to me an unexpected understanding. Before me, as it were, arose some kind of divine revelation, quickly putting everything in its place. I understood that my hallucinations were not an illness and that people in general are not prone to such ailments. All this darkness, insanity, schizophrenia, and visions are projected into our brains by these aliens. Their spaceship acts as a powerful transmitter around the world. If you suddenly interest them, then wherever you are, rest assured they will get to you. Their waves, like an infernal spider, envelop the entire Earth. That's how they control people. And the entire global system of psychiatric treatment is in secret collusion with them. They bring people here to feed their offspring. The whitish larvae of the aliens devour human flesh to grow strong. I am also here as food. Apparently, some barrier of self-preservation in the brain breaks when you realize that you are destined to become someone's dinner. Now, I am absolutely indifferent. My fear has evaporated, and I accept this as a given. Behind the door, I hear a woman scream. Soon they will come for me. I must hurry to hide this diary while there is still time. The last thing I want to write about is that no matter what state I was in, I could not have killed my own mother. I always suspected that someone external did it, subjugating my mind. My suspicions have finally been confirmed, and now my conscience is clear. Farewell.